The rain stung Eli's face as he stood frozen in the park, his sneakers sinking into the muddy grass. 15 years had carved a stranger's lines into the woman before him. But her eyes, those fierce, hazel eyes, were unmistakable. His mother, Claire, was alive, and she was here, after a lifetime of silence. Eli was 8 when she vanished. One night, she tucked him into bed, her lullaby soft as moonlight, promising pancakes for breakfast. By morning, she was gone, no note, no trace, just a void that swallowed his childhood. Growing up in foster homes across Oregon, Eli clung to her memory like a lifeline, piecing together fragments of her laugh, her perfume, her warmth. Now, at 23, he'd found her in a small coastal town, 1,000 miles from the life they'd lost. A private investigator's tip, a grainy photo, and a bus ticket had led him here, to this rain-soaked reunion under a sycamore tree. Eli, Claire whispered, her voice trembling as she reached for him. Her hands, roughened by years he couldn't imagine, hesitated in the air. My boy. He wanted to run to her, to collapse into the embrace he'd dreamed of. But his feet wouldn't move. Anger and longing churned inside him, a storm as fierce as the one overhead. Why had she left? Why hadn't she fought to find him? The questions burned, but her tear-filled eyes held something else: guilt, love, and a secret that seemed to weigh her down. They stood in silence, rain dripping from their faces, until she stepped closer. I never wanted to leave you, she said, her voice breaking. I had no choice. No choice. Eli's voice cracked, sharp with betrayal. You were my mom. You were supposed to stay. Claire flinched, but she didn't look away. I'll explain everything, she said. But not here. Come with me. They walked through the drizzle to a small diner, its neon sign flickering open against the gray sky. Inside, the smell of coffee and fried eggs grounded Eli, pulling him back from the edge of his emotions. They slid into a booth, the vinyl creaking under them. Claire ordered 2 coffees, her hands shaking as she stirred sugar into hers. Eli noticed the scars on her knuckles, faint but unmistakable, and wondered what kind of life had marked her so deeply. I was running, she began, her voice low. From your father. From the life we had. Eli's memories of his father were a tall man with a booming laugh and a temper that could shatter glass. He hurt you, Eli said. Not a question. He remembered the shouting, the way Claire would usher him to his room when his father's voice turned cruel. He did more than that, Claire said, her eyes distant. He was involved in dangerous things. I found out what he was doing, and I couldn't stay. If I did, it would have destroyed us both. Eli leaned forward, his heart pounding. What was he doing? Claire's gaze darted to the window, as if expecting someone to appear. He was part of a network. Drugs, money, power. I saw too much, heard too much. When I threatened to go to the police, he said he'd kill me and you. Eli's breath caught. He'd always known his father was volatile. But this. So you left to protect me? She nodded, tears spilling over. I had to disappear. If I stayed, he'd have found us. I changed my name, moved from town to town. I wanted to come back for you, Eli. But every time I got close, I saw his shadow. He was always watching. The diner's hum faded as Eli processed her words. His mother hadn't abandoned him out of choice, been running for their lives. But something didn't add up. Why didn't you tell me later? When I was older, I spent years thinking you didn't want me. Claire's face crumpled. I tried. I sent letters to your foster homes, but they never reached you. I didn't know if he was intercepting them or if the system just swallowed them. I was so scared. Eli. I still am. The weight of her words settled over him. Heavy but incomplete. There was more she wasn't saying, could feel it in the way her hands fidgeted. The way her eyes avoided his. What aren't you telling me? He asked. His voice soft but firm. Claire hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a worn photograph. It showed her, younger, smiling beside another woman with dark hair and a radiant grin. They were holding hands, their faces glowing with something Eli recognized instantly: love. His heart stuttered. Who is she? He asked, though part of him already knew. Her name was Lena, Claire said, her voice barely above a whisper. She was everything to me, and she's the reason I had to run. Eli stared at the photo, his mind racing. His mother had been in love with a woman. The secret she'd carried wasn't just about his father's crime sit, was about who she was, who she'd loved. And somehow, that truth had torn their family apart. As the rain tapped against the diner's windows, Eli realized this reunion was only the beginning. The secret Claire had hidden for 15 years was unraveling, and it would change everything he thought he knew about his past and himself. Eli's fingers traced the edges of the photograph, the image of his mother and Lena burning into his mind. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed above them, casting harsh shadows on Claire's face. She looked older now, worn by years of hiding. But the love in her eyes when she spoke of Lena was unmistakable. Lena, Eli repeated, testing the name. What happened to her? Claire's hands tightened around her coffee mug, her knuckles widening. She's gone, she said, her voice hollow. But not in the way you might think. She's alive. Somewhere. But we lost each other. Eli leaned back, the vinyl booth creaking under his weight. His mother's words felt like pieces of a puzzle, each one sharp and incomplete. Lost each other. Mom, you're not making sense. If she was so important, why isn't she here? And what does she have to do with you leaving me? Claire's eyes flickered with pain, but she didn't look away. Lena was the reason I found the strength to leave your father, she said. She showed me what love could be, real love, not the fear I lived with every day. But when I told him I was leaving, that I'd fallen in love with her, he didn't just threaten me. He threatened her, too. Eli's stomach twisted. He'd grown up in a world that wasn't always kind to people like him, people who loved differently. In high school, he'd hidden his own feelings for a boy named Jamie, terrified of the whispers and fists that followed kids who didn't fit in. The thought of his mother facing that same fear, amplified by his father's rage, made his chest ache. He said he'd ruin her. Claire continued, her voice steady but laced with grief. Lena had a Lithia career, a family. Your father had connections. Eli. He could have destroyed her. So I made a deal. I'd leave. Disappear completely. and he'd leave her alone. But I had to leave you, too, to keep you safe. Eli's throat tightened. You left me to protect her. No, Claire said quickly, reaching for his hand. He pulled back, and her face fell. I left to protect both of you. If I stayed, he would have hurt you to hurt me. I thought you'd be safer in foster care. Away from him. Away from me. The words hit like a punch. Eli wanted to believe her, to let her love wash away the years of loneliness. But the betrayal still stung. You chose her over me, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Claire shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. I didn't choose. Eli. I was trapped. Every choice was a loss. I lost you. I lost Lena. I lost myself. The diner's door chimed as a couple walked in, shaking rain from their coats. Eli barely noticed. His mind was spinning, caught between the mother he'd longed for and the stranger sitting across from him. So where is she now? He asked. Lena. If she's alive, why aren't you with her? Claire's gaze dropped to the photograph. After I left, we tried to stay in touch. Secret phone calls, burner phones, coded letters. But it was too dangerous. Your father's people were always watching. We agreed to cut contact, to keep her safe. I haven't seen her in 12 years. Eli's heart pounded. Do you still love her? Claire's smile was small, bittersweet. Every day? The vulnerability in her voice cracked something open in Eli. He'd spent years building walls around his heart, protecting himself from the pain of her absence. But now, seeing her raw and honest, he felt those walls tremble. I'm gay, Mom, he said suddenly, the words spilling out before he could stop them. I've known since I was 15. I never told anyone because I was afraid of what people would do. Claire's eyes widened, then softened. She reached for his hand again, and this time, he let her take it. Eli, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I'm so sorry you felt alone. I wish I'd been there. I wish I could have told you that love, real love, is worth everything. For a moment, they sat in silence, hands clasped across the table. The rain outside had slowed, but the air between them was heavy with unspoken questions. Eli wanted to know more about Lena, about his father, about the life his mother had lived in the shadows. But before he could ask, Claire's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, and her face paled. What is it? Eli asked, his pulse quickening. It's nothing, she said too quickly, shoving the phone into her pocket. But her eyes darted to the diner's windows, scanning the parking lot. We should go. It's not safe to stay in one place too long. Eli frowned. Not safe. Mom. He's gone. Dad died 5 years ago. I saw the obituary. Claire's expression froze, a mix of shock and something darker fear. Eli, she said, her voice barely audible. Your father's not dead. The words hit like a thunderclap. Eli's world tilted, the diner's warmth replaced by a chill that seeped into his bones. If his father was alive, everything Claire had told him, every sacrifice, every secret was still in play. And now, Eli was caught in the middle of a truth he wasn't sure he was ready to face. Eli's heart raced as he followed Claire out of the diner, the bell above the door jangling behind them. The rain had stopped, leaving the air thick with the scent of wet pavement and pine. His mother's words echoed in his mind. "Your father's not dead." How could that be? He'd seen the obituary online. A grainy photo of his father's stern face alongside a brief, impersonal notice. Had it been a lie? A cover? "Mom, stop," Eli said, grabbing her arm as they reached the sidewalk. "You can't just drop that on me and expect me to follow you blindly." "What do you mean he's not dead?" Claire's eyes darted around the empty street, her breath shallow. "Not here," she hissed. "My apartment's a few blocks away. We'll talk there." Eli hesitated, his trust fraying. But the fear in her eyes was real, and despite the years apart, he couldn't ignore it. They walked in silence, the coastal town's quiet streets amplifying every sound: the crunch of gravel, the distant cry of a gull. Claire's apartment was above a bookstore, its faded sign reading Tidewater Tales. The stairs creaked as they climbed, and inside, the small space smelled of lavender and old paper. Photos lined the walls, but none were of Eli or their old life. Instead, they showed landscapes, strangers, a life rebuilt from scratch. "Sit," Claire said, gesturing to a worn couch. She locked the door behind them, checking the windows before sitting across from him. "I'm sorry, Eli. I didn't want to drag you into this." "Into what?" he demanded. "You said Dad died. I believed you. I mourned him, even after everything. Now you're saying it was a lie." Claire ran a hand through her silver-streaked hair, her face etched with exhaustion. "I thought he was dead, too. For a while. The obituary, the news, it all seemed real. But 2 years ago, I saw him. In Seattle. At a gas station. He didn't see me, but I knew it was him. Same walk. Same scar on his jaw." Eli's stomach churned. "Why didn't you tell me? I've been living my life thinking I was free of him." "I didn't know where you were," Claire said, her voice breaking. "I'd lost track of you in the foster system. When I saw him, I panicked. I moved again. Changed my name again. I couldn't risk him finding me or you." Eli leaned forward, his hands clenched. "What does this have to do with Lena? With you being who you are?" Claire's eyes softened, but her jaw tightened. "Your father didn't just hate me for leaving. He hated who I loved. He called it unnatural. Said I was a disgrace. When I told him about Lena, he went after her. He threatened her family, her job. He used his connections to make her life hell until she had to leave, too." Eli's chest tightened. He knew that kind of hatred. In foster care, he'd heard slurs hurled at kids who dared to be themselves. He'd stayed silent, hiding his own truth. But the shame had lingered. "So you ran to protect her," he said. "And me. But why didn't you fight back? Go to the police?" Claire laughed, a bitter sound. "Your father had people in his pocket: cops, judges, dealers. I had no proof. Just my word against his. If I fought, he'd have won. He always did." Eli stood, pacing the small room. The weight of her words was suffocating. His father, a man he barely remembered, was a shadow looming over their lives. And now, Eli was part of it. What does he want now? If he's alive, why hasn't he come for us? Claire's face darkened. He doesn't know I found you. But he's looking. I've heard whispers, people asking about me in towns I've left. He's close. Eli. Too close. A knock at the door made them both freeze. Claire's hand shot to her pocket, where Eli glimpsed the outline of a small knife. Stay here, she whispered, moving toward the door. She peered through the peephole, then relaxed slightly. It's just Mara. Mara? Eli asked as Claire opened the door. A woman in her late 30s stepped inside, her dark curls damp from the earlier rain. She carried a grocery bag, but her eyes locked on Eli, sharp and assessing. You must be Eli, she said, her voice warm but guarded. I'm Mara. I help your mom keep an eye out. Keep an eye out. Eli's gaze flicked to Claire. For what? For him. Mara set the bag on the counter, glancing at Claire. She didn't tell you everything, did she? Claire sighed, rubbing her temples. Mara's a friend. She's been helping me stay off the grid. She knows about your father. About Lena everything. Eli's head spun. How many people are in on this? And why am I just finding out now? Because you're here, Mara said, her tone matter of fact. You showing up changes things. If he finds out Claire's with you, he'll come faster. Eli's anger flared. So what am I supposed to do? Run. Hide. I just got her back. Claire stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. You don't have to run. But you need to understand what we're up against. Your father isn't just a man, has a network. And he doesn't forgive. As Mara unpacked the groceries, Eli noticed a photo on the counter, a candid shot of Claire and Mara laughing together, their hands brushing. His heart skipped. Was Mara more than a friend? Before he could ask, Claire's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, her face paling once more. It's him, she whispered. He knows I'm here. Eli's pulse thundered in his ears as Claire clutched her phone, her fingers trembling. The small apartment felt like a trap, the walls closing in with every second. Mara moved swiftly, pulling the curtains shut and dimming the lights. How does he know? Eli demanded, his voice sharp. You said you've been careful. Claire's eyes were wide, her breath uneven. I have been. But he's relentless. Someone must have seen us at the diner. Or, I don't know. He has eyes everywhere. Mara placed a hand on Claire's shoulder, her touch steadying. We need to move, she said. Now. There's a safe house 2 hours north. We can lie low until we figure out his next move. Eli's mind reeled. A safe house. This wasn't his life, this was a movie. A nightmare. But the fear in his mother's eyes was real, and it anchored him to the moment. I'm not running, he said, his voice firm despite the chaos in his chest. I just found you. I'm not losing you again. Claire's face softened, but her voice was urgent. Eli, you don't understand. Your father's not the man you remember. He's worse. If he finds us together, he won't just hurt me. He'll hurt you to get to me. Mara was already packing a duffel bag, shoving clothes and a first aid kit inside. "We don't have time to argue," she said. "Eli, you're either with us or you're not. But staying here isn't an option." Eli's gaze flicked between them, landing on the photo of Claire and Mara again. "Are you two together?" he asked, the question slipping out before he could stop it. Claire froze, her eyes meeting Mara's. A silent understanding passed between them, and Mara nodded slightly. "Yes," Claire said, her voice steady despite the tension. "Mara's been my rock for the last 3 years. She's why I've survived this long." Eli's heart twisted, a mix of relief and confusion. His mother had found love again, but it only deepened the mystery of her past. "Does Dad know about her?" he asked. "He doesn't," Mara said, zipping the duffel. "And we need to keep it that way. If he finds out, I'm a target, too." The weight of their words settled over Eli. His father wasn't just a threat to his mother's past love with Lena, he was a danger to her present. To Mara. To him. "Okay," he said finally. "I'm in. But I want answers. All of them." Claire nodded, her eyes glistening. "You'll get them. I promise." They left the apartment under cover of dusk. The coastal town's streets quiet except for the hum of distant waves. Mara drove a battered pickup truck, Eli and Claire in the back, hidden under a tarp. The ride was tense. The only sound the engine's rumble and the occasional crackle of Mara's walkie-talkie, connected to someone she called the network. Eli didn't ask who they were, he wasn't sure he wanted to know. The safe house was a cabin tucked in the woods, its windows boarded and its roof sagging. Inside, it was sparse but functional: a cot, a wood stove, a table with a single lamp. Mara set up a perimeter check while Claire pulled Eli to the table, her expression grave. "Your father's name isn't just James anymore," she said. "He goes by Victor now. He's built a new life, a new identity, but he's still tied to the same network. Drugs, money laundering. Worse. He's powerful, Eli, and he's obsessed with control." Eli's jaw clenched. "Why does he care about you now? It's been 15 years. Claire hesitated, her fingers tracing the edge of the table. "Because of what I know. When I left, I took something documents, evidence of his deals. I hid them, and he's been hunting me ever since to get them back." Eli's eyes widened. "You have proof. Why didn't you use it?" "Because it's not enough," Claire said. "Not without Lena. She was part of it, saw things, too. We were going to expose him together. But when we split up, I lost the other half of the puzzle. Without her, the documents are incomplete." Eli's mind raced. Lena wasn't just his mother's lost love, she was the key to ending this. "So we find her," he said. "We get her. We get the evidence. And we take him down." Claire's face lit with a spark of hope, but it faded quickly. "It's not that simple. I don't know where she is. And even if I did, she might not want to be found. She's been running, too." Mara returned, her boots muddy. "Perimeter's clear. But we can't stay long. We need a plan." Eli stood, his resolve hardening. "The plan is we find Lena. If she's the key, we track her down. I'm not letting him control our lives anymore. Claire's eyes met his. A mix of pride and fear. You're so much like me, she whispered. Stubborn. Brave. As night fell, the cabin's shadows deepened, mirroring the uncertainty in Eli's heart. He was in deeper than he'd ever imagined. But for the first time, he felt a purpose. He'd found his mother, and now he'd help her find the truth, and maybe, just maybe, they'd both find freedom. The cabin's single lamp flickered, casting long shadows across the room as Eli, Claire, and Mara huddled around the table. A map of the Pacific Northwest lay spread before them, marked with pins and scribbled notes. Claire's attempts to track Lena over the years. Eli's eyes burned with fatigue, but he couldn't look away from the map. Somewhere out there was the woman who held the key to his mother's past and their future. Lena's last known location was in Boise, Claire said, pointing to a red pin. 3 years ago, she was working at a community center under a different name, but she vanished again before I could reach her. Eli frowned. Why does she keep running? If she has evidence, why not use it? Claire's shoulders sagged. Fear. Shame. Your father didn't just threaten her life, he destroyed her confidence. He outed her to her family, her colleagues. She lost everything because of me. Mara's hand found Claire's, a silent anchor. Eli noticed the gesture, his heart softening. He'd spent so long resenting his mother's absence. But seeing her with Mara, he glimpsed the woman she'd become, someone who loved fiercely, despite the cost. We start in Boise, Eli said, his voice steady. If she's there, we find her. If not, we follow the trail. Mara nodded, but her expression was grim. It's risky. Victor's network is wide. If he's tracking Claire, he might be watching Lena, too. Then we're careful, Eli said. But we're not waiting for him to find us first. The next morning, they packed the truck and headed east. The coastal fog giving way to rolling hills, and then the flat expanse of Idaho. Eli sat in the passenger seat, watching Mara drive with quiet focus. Claire sat in the back, poring over old letters Lena had sent years ago, searching for clues. The tension between them was palpable, but so was their determination. Boise was bustling, a city of wide streets and modern buildings mixed with historic charm. They checked into a cheap motel, using cash and fake names. Mara scouted the area while Eli and Claire visited the community center where Lena had last been seen. The building was bright, with murals of smiling faces on the walls. But the receptionist shook her head when they asked about Lena. She hasn't worked here in years, the woman said. People come and go. Sorry. Eli's hope wavered, but Claire's eyes caught on a bulletin board covered in flyers. One, faded and curling at the edges, advertised a support group for LGBTQ plus youth. The name at the bottom read L. Carter. Claire's breath hitched. That's her, she whispered. Carter was her mother's maiden name. They tracked down the group's organizer, a young man named Sam who ran a coffee shop nearby. He was wary at first, his eyes narrowing as Claire explained their search. But when Eli mentioned Lena's connection to their past, Sam softened. She comes in sometimes, he said. Not often. She's cautious. I can get a message to her, but I can't promise she'll respond. Eli's heart leapt. Tell her Claire's here. Tell her we need her help to stop him. Sam nodded, scribbling a note. I'll do what I can. Check back tomorrow. That night, in the motel, Eli couldn't sleep. He lay on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with questions. What would Lena be like? Would she help them? And what would it mean to face his father, a man he'd thought was dead? The weight of it all pressed against his chest. But beneath it was a flicker of hope. He was fighting for his mother, for her truth, for their future. The next day, Sam had news. Lena had agreed to meet, but only on her terms to park on the outskirts of town. At dusk, Eli's stomach churned as they drove to the meeting spot, a quiet clearing with a single bench under a willow tree. The air was cool, the sky streaked with pink and gold. Lena was already there, standing by the bench, her dark hair shorter than in the photo, but her posture unmistakable. She turned as they approached, her eyes locking on Claire. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Claire's steps faltered, her hand rising to her mouth. Lena, she whispered. Lena's face was a storm of emotions, love, pain, fear. Claire, she said, her voice thick. You shouldn't be here. Eli watched as his mother stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. I had to find you, Claire said. We need you. He's still out there. Lena's gaze shifted to Eli, softening. You're Eli? She said. Not a question. You look just like her. Before Eli could respond, a car's engine roared in the distance, headlights cutting through the dusk. Lena's face paled. We need to go, she said, grabbing Claire's arm. Now. As they ran toward the truck, Eli's heart pounded. The past was catching up, and it was faster than they were. The truck's tires screeched as Mara floored the gas, the park's lights fading in the rearview mirror. Eli clung to the door, his eyes locked on Lena, who sat beside Claire in the back. Her face was taut, her hands gripping Claire's as if anchoring herself to a memory. The headlights that had spooked her were gone, but the tension in the truck was electric. Who was that? Eli demanded, twisting to face Lena. Was it him? Lena's eyes met his, sharp with fear. I don't know, but I've been followed before. We can't take chances. Claire's voice was soft, pleading. Lena, tell us what you know. We can't keep running blind. Lena exhaled, her shoulders slumping. I've been hiding, just like you. After you left, Claire, I tried to rebuild. New name, new city. But Victor's people found me. They trashed my apartment, left threats. I've been moving ever since. Eli's chest tightened. His father's shadow stretched further than he'd imagined. What about the evidence? He asked. Mom said you have part of it. The documents to expose him. Lena's gaze flicked to Claire. A silent question. Claire nodded, and Lena reached into her jacket, pulling out a small, weathered notebook. This is my half, she said. Names, dates, transactions. It's coded, but it's enough to hurt him if we can combine it with yours. Claire pulled a similar notebook from her bag, its pages yellowed. This is mine. Together, they're enough to bring him down. But we need to get them to the right people, someone he can't buy. Mara glanced at them through the rearview mirror. I know someone. A journalist in Portland. Works for an independent outlet. She's clean. And she's fearless. But we'll need to move fast. Eli's mind raced. So we go to Portland. We hand over the evidence. And this ends. It's not that simple, Lena said. Victor's network is deep. If he knows we're moving against him, he'll come for Ushered. The truck fell silent, the weight of their plan settling over them. Eli looked at his mother, her face lit by the dashboard's glow. She'd spent 15 years running, sacrificing everything for him. For Lena, he couldn't let her carry this alone anymore. They drove through the night, stopping only to refuel at a deserted gas station. Mara stayed vigilant, scanning for tails, while Eli helped Claire and Lena decode the notebooks. The entries were cryptic initials, numbers, locations, but together, they painted a picture of a sprawling operation. Drug routes, payoffs, even names of officials in Victor's pocket. Eli's anger grew with every page. His father wasn't just a monster, was a machine, profiting off pain. By dawn, they reached a small motel outside Portland. Mara checked them in, using another alias, while Lena and Claire worked to finalize the evidence. Eli watched them, their heads bent together, their voices soft but urgent. He saw the love that still lingered between them, fragile but unbroken. It reminded him of Jamie, the boy from high school he'd never had the courage to love openly. The regret stung, but it also fueled him. He wouldn't let fear win this time. The journalist, a woman named Rachel, met them in a crowded cafe in downtown Portland. Her sharp eyes scanned the notebooks, her expression shifting from skepticism to grim determination. This is explosive, she said, but it's dangerous. If I run this, you'll need protection. We know, Claire said, but we're done hiding. Rachel nodded, tucking the notebooks into her bag. I'll need a week to verify everything and get it to print. Stay low until then. As they left the cafe, Eli felt a flicker of hope. They were closito ending this. But as they stepped onto the street, a black SUV pulled up, its windows tinted. Mara's hand shot to her knife. But before anyone could move, a man stepped out. Tall, scarred, with eyes that cut like steel. Victor. Claire, he said, his voice smooth but laced with menace. You've been busy. Eli's blood ran cold. His father was no ghost, was here, real and terrifying. Claire stepped in front of Eli, her stance protective. Leave him out of this, she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Victor's gaze flicked to Eli, a twisted smile curling his lips. My son, he said. You've grown. Shame you picked the wrong side. Lena grabbed Eli's arm, pulling him back, while Mara positioned herself between them and Victor. Walk away, Mara said, her voice low. You don't want this fight. Victor laughed, a sound that sent chills down Eli's spine. Oh, I do, he said. And I always win. As he stepped closer, Eli's world narrowed to the man who'd shattered his family. This wasn't just about evidence, Anna Maria, it was personal. And he was ready to fight. The Portland street buzzed with afternoon traffic. But to Eli, the world was silent except for the pounding of his heart. Victor stood mere feet away, his presence a dark stain on the bright day. Claire's hand trembled as she gripped Eli's arm. Her eyes locked on her ex-husband. Lena and Mara flanked them, their bodies tense, ready to move. "You think you can expose me?" Victor said, his voice low, almost amused. "You've got nothing. Those notebooks, they're scraps. No one will believe you." Claire's voice was steel. "They will when Rachel publishes. It's over. Victor." His smile didn't waver, but his eyes darkened. "You always were naive. Claire. You think I don't have people watching? I knew you'd run to Lena. And now you've brought my son into this mess." Eli's fists clenched. "I'm not your son." He spat. "Not anymore." Victor's gaze shifted to him, appraising. Cold. "You've got her fire," he said. "Pity it's wasted. Walk away. Eli. This doesn't have to involve you." Mara stepped forward, her knife glinting in her hand. "He's not going anywhere. And neither are we." Victor's laugh was sharp, cutting. "You're out of your depth. All of you. Hand over the notebooks. And maybe I'll let you live." Lena's voice broke the tension. Calm but firm. "We don't have them. They're with someone you can't touch." For the first time, Victor's composure slipped, his jaw tightening. "You're bluffing." "Try us," Eli said, stepping forward despite Claire's grip. He was done being afraid. This man had taken his childhood, his mother's happiness, Lena's life. He wouldn't take their future. Victor's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Eli thought he'd lunge. But then he stepped back, raising a hand. Two men emerged from the SUV, their faces blank but their hands resting on concealed weapons. "Last chance," Victor said. "Give me what I want, or this gets ugly." Before anyone could respond, a police siren wailed nearby. Victor's head snapped toward the sound, and Mara seized the moment. "Go," she shouted, shoving Eli and Claire toward an alley. Lena followed, her breath ragged as they ran. They darted through the narrow streets, the sound of footsteps pounding behind them. Eli's lungs burned, but he kept pace, his mother's hand in his. They ducked into a parking garage, hiding behind a van as the footsteps grew closer, then faded. Mara checked her phone, her face grim. "Rachel's safe," she said. "She's got the notebooks and backup. But we need to stay hidden until she publishes." Claire nodded, her face pale but resolute. "There's a safe house outside the city. We can make it by nightfall." They moved cautiously, sticking to back roads and avoiding main streets. By dusk, they reached a small farmhouse nestled in the hills, its windows dark. Mara's contact, a gruff older man named Tom, let them in, his eyes scanning the horizon for threats. "You're safe here," he said. "For now." Inside, Eli collapsed onto a couch, exhaustion crashing over him. Claire sat beside him, her hand resting on his. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never wanted you to face him." Eli shook his head. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I know the truth. Lena sat across from them, her eyes distant. I should have fought harder, she said. Back then, I let him scare me away. I won't do that again. Claire reached for her, their fingers intertwining. Eli watched, his heart swelling. Their love had survived years of pain, and it gave him hope. But the fear lingered. Victor was still out there, and he wasn't done. Over the next few days, they stayed low, monitoring news sites for Rachel's article. Eli learned more about Lena, her quiet strength, her work helping queer kids find their way. He saw his mother's love for her, unyielding despite the years apart. He also saw Mara's devotion, her fierce protectiveness. They were a family, fractured but fighting to heal. On the third day, Rachel's article dropped. The headline screamed across the internet, "Crime Lord's Empire Exposed, Decades of Corruption Unraveled." The notebook's contents were laid bare: names, dates, deals, all traced back to Victor. Social media erupted, X posts spreading the story like wildfire. But with exposure came danger. Tom's walkie-talkie crackled late that night, his voice urgent. We've got movement. 2 cars. A mile out. It's him. Eli's heart stopped. Victor wasn't running, was coming for them. As Mara grabbed weapons and Claire pulled Lena close, Eli realized this was it. The final stand. He wasn't just fighting for his mother anymore, was fighting for himself. For the life he wanted. Free from fear. The farmhouse was a fortress of shadows, its silence broken only by the creak of floorboards and the hum of Tom's walkie-talkie. Eli stood by the window, peering through a crack in the boards as headlights cut through the darkness. 2 cars slowed on the dirt road, their engines growling like predators. Victor was here. Get down, Mara hissed, her knife in one hand, a borrowed pistol in the other. Claire and Lena crouched behind the couch, their faces pale but determined. Tom barred the door, his shotgun ready. Eli's heart pounded, but he felt a strange calm. This was his fight now, too. Eli, stay back, Claire whispered, her voice trembling. Please. He shook his head. I'm not hiding. Not from him. The car stopped, doors slamming. Victor's voice carried through the night, smooth and taunting. Claire, come out. Let's end this. Mara signaled to Tom, who nodded and slipped out the back to flank them. Eli gripped a crowbar, his knuckles white. He wasn't a fighter, but he'd protect his mother, Lena, Mara, the family he'd found. Victor's men approached, their footsteps heavy on the porch. A loud crack split the air as Tom fired a warning shot from the trees. Back off, he shouted. The men froze, but Victor's laugh echoed, chilling Eli's blood. You think you can scare me? Victor called. I've been waiting for this. Claire. You and your friends. Lena's jaw tightened, her eyes blazing. He doesn't get to win, she whispered to Claire. Not this time. Claire nodded, her hand squeezing Lena's. We end it together. Mara tossed Eli a flashlight. If it goes south, get them out the back. There's a truck in the barn. Eli nodded, his throat tight. He didn't want to run. but he'd do whatever it took to keep them safe. The standoff stretched, seconds feeling like hours, until a new sound broke the tension. Sirens, growing louder. Headlights flashed in the distance. Not Victor's, but police. Victor's men hesitated, glancing at their boss. "You called the cops." Victor snarled, stepping into the porch's light. His face was older, harder, but unmistakably the man Eli remembered. "You think they'll save you?" "They're not here for us," Claire said, standing. She stepped toward the door, her voice steady. Rachel's article went live. "They know everything. Victor, you're done." The sirens grew deafening, red and blue lights flooding the yard. Victor's men bolted, but he stood his ground, his eyes locked on Claire. "This isn't over," he said, his voice low. "You'll never be free." But as the police swarmed, cuffing his men and closing in, Victor's bravado cracked. He turned to run, but Tom emerged from the shadows, tackling him to the ground. Eli watched, his heart pounding, as his father was dragged away, shouting threats that faded into the night. The farmhouse fell silent, the air thick with relief and exhaustion. Claire collapsed into Lena's arms, sobbing. Mara lowered her weapon, her eyes soft as she looked at Eli. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded, though his hands shook. "Yeah, I think so." The police took their statements, Rachel's article providing the evidence to back their story. Victor's network unraveled as arrests rolled out across the state, his empire crumbling under the weight of the truth. Eli, Claire, Lena, and Mara stayed at the farmhouse until dawn, piecing together the years they'd lost. Over the next weeks, they rebuilt. Claire and Lena rekindled their love, cautious but hopeful, while Mara became the sister Eli never had. He opened up about Jamie, the boy he'd loved, and with their support, he reached out, finding Jamie living in Seattle, still carrying a spark for him. One evening, as they sat on the farmhouse porch, the sky ablaze with stars, Eli looked at his mother. "You kept your secret to protect us," he said, "but you don't have to hide anymore." Claire smiled, tears in her eyes. "Neither do you, Eli. Neither do you." They'd faced the darkness, Victor's threats, the pain of the past, and come out stronger. Love, in all its forms, had carried them through. As Eli leaned back, feeling the warmth of his family around him, he knew they'd never run again. They'd found their truth, and it was enough.